Transmit anything. We don't want the aliens to know we're here. Captain, Torres said. Are we really going to the Defiance move through space like a ghost? The quantum noise amplifier hummed in the engine room, creating energy patterns. That confused alien sensors. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. His home world was burning. Captain, Torres said quietly, I'm receiving reports from the surface. New York, London, Tokyo, all under attack. The alien ships are targeting population centers now. Jake could see the flashes of weapons fire from orbit. Each flash meant thousands of people dying. The 3 alien ships hung above Earth like black angels of death, their blue energy beams cutting through the planet's defenses. How long until we reach firing range? Jake asked. Parker checked her navigation display. 2 hours at current speed. But Captain, I should warn you. I've been studying the alien ships while we traveled. They're even bigger than I first thought. Each one is at least 5 times the size of our largest battleship. What about their weapons? The blue energy beams appear to be some kind of focused plasma. They cut through our strongest armor like it was paper, and their shields... Captain, I watched them absorb direct hits from the Liberty's main guns without any damage. Jake nodded grimly. He had seen the same thing during the battle at Mars. The human fleet's most powerful weapons had been useless against the alien technology. Danny's voice came through the communication system from the engine room. Captain, I need to tell you about the amplifier. It's working, but it's putting tremendous stress on the reactor. I estimate we have maybe 4 hours before the system. Overloads. Can you fix it if it breaks? Not during combat. If the amplifier fails, we'll be visible again. And Captain, if the reactor overloads completely, it could cause a core breach. Jake understood. They had 4 hours to do whatever they were going to do. After that, the Defiance would either be detected by the aliens or destroyed by her own. Reactor Dr. Bell came onto the bridge carrying a medical scanner. Captain, I've been thinking about the alien mind scanning ability. I have an idea that might help us. What kind of idea? Dr. Bell showed him readings on her scanner. I've been studying the brain patterns of our crew. None of us show signs of alien mental probing. But I've discovered something interesting. The scanning process leaves a specific electromagnetic signature. Meaning I can build a device that will detect when the aliens are trying to scan our minds. It won't stop them, but it will warn us when it's happening. Jake thought about this. If they knew when the aliens were trying to read their thoughts, they could be ready for it. How long to build this detector? I already built a prototype. Here, let me show you. Dr. Bell activated a small device attached to her medical scanner. The device beeped softly and showed a green light. Green means no alien scanning detected, she explained. If it turns red and makes a loud alarm, the aliens are trying to probe our minds. Can you make enough for the whole crew? I'll need help. But yes, we can have them ready before we reach Earth. Jake felt a small spark of hope. Every advantage helped, no matter how small. Torres, Jake said. Any word from the other old ships? The ones with older reactors? Torres shook his head. No, sir. The Carter and Davis are still retreating toward the outer colonies. I think we're on our own. Jake didn't blame the other captains for following orders. They had crews to protect and families to think about. But Jake couldn't abandon Earth while there was still a chance to help. Captain, Parker called out, I'm detecting something strange. The alien ships are changing their attack pattern. Jake looked at the tactical display. The 3 alien ships had been moving systematically around Earth, destroying targets in order. But now they were gathering above North America. What are they doing? Parker studied her sensors. I think they're preparing for something big. Energy readings are increasing on all 3 ships. It looks like they're charging some kind of massive weapon. Torres intercepted a communication from Earth's surface. Captain, I'm receiving a message from the President. She's in the North American Defense Command bunker. President Watson appeared on the screen again. This time she looked calm, but Jake could see the fear in her eyes. To any human ships in the area, she said, Our scientists have detected a massive energy buildup in the alien vessels. They appear to be preparing to use a planet-killing weapon. If they succeed, Earth will be uninhabitable. This is our final message. Tell the colonies that we fought. To the end. The transmission ended. Jake felt cold rage building in his chest. The aliens weren't content with conquering Earth. They wanted to destroy it completely. "How long until the alien weapon is ready?" Jake asked. Parker worked frantically at her console. "Based on the energy buildup rate, maybe 90 minutes. Jake made his decision. "Change course. Take us directly toward the alien ships. Maximum speed." "Captain." Walsh's voice came from the engine room. "If we push the engines that hard with the amplifier running, we'll definitely overload." "How long can you give me, Danny?" "Maybe 2 hours. 3 if we're lucky." "Do it." The Defiance leaped forward as her engines increased power. Jake could feel the vibration through the deck as the old ship pushed herself beyond her limits. "Lisa," Jake said, "I need you to target the largest alien ship, the one in the center of their formation." "Captain, our weapons won't penetrate their shields. We saw that at Mars. I'm not planning to use our weapons, I'm planning to ram them." The bridge went quiet. Everyone stared at Jake. "Sir," Torres said, "are you talking about a suicide run?" "I'm talking about saving Earth. If we can disable or destroy their main ship, it might disrupt their planet-killer weapon." Parker looked at her tactical display. "Captain, even if we could somehow damage their ship, the Defiance isn't big enough to cause serious harm to something that size." Jake had been thinking about this problem. "What if we overload our reactor on purpose, turn the Defiance into a bomb?" Walsh's voice came through the communication system. "Captain, a reactor overload would create a massive explosion, maybe big enough to damage an alien ship, but we'd have to get very close, and we'd have no chance of survival. Danny, come up to the bridge. I want to discuss this with everyone." A few minutes later, Walsh arrived on the bridge. His hands were covered with grease from working on the engines. Dr. Bell came with him, carrying her mind-scanning detectors. Jake looked at his crew. These people had followed him through 3 years of routine patrols. They deserved to know what he was asking of them. "I won't lie to you," Jake said. "What I'm proposing is a one-way mission. If we ram the alien ship with an overloaded reactor, none of us will survive, but millions of people on Earth might live." "Captain," Dr. Bell said, "are you sure this is our only option? The main human fleet is gone. Earth's defenses are destroyed. Those alien ships are about to use a weapon that will kill everyone on the planet. We're the only ship in position to stop them." Parker studied her tactical display. "Captain, I've been analyzing the alien formation. Their main ship is in the center, with the other 2 ships protecting it. If we could somehow get past the escort ships..." "How would we do that?" "The quantum noise amplifier makes us nearly invisible, but we're not completely undetectable. If we approach from an unexpected angle and move fast enough, we might get close before they can stop us." Walsh nodded slowly. "The reactor overload would have to be perfectly timed. Too early and the explosion won't damage their ship. Too late and they'll detect us and destroy us before we can ram them." "How much time would you need to prepare the overload?" "Maybe 30 minutes to set up the sequence, but Captain, once I start the overload process, there's no stopping it. The reactor will explode whether we want it to or not." Jake thought about the timing. They were still an hour away from the alien ships. If Walsh started the overload sequence when they were 30 minutes out, they would have just enough time to reach the target. "Dr. Bell," Jake said, "how are those mind-scanning detectors coming?" "Almost finished. I have 5 units ready, enough for the bridge crew." "Good. If the aliens detect us during the approach, they might try to scan our minds to learn our plan." Torres looked up from his communication console. "Captain, I'm receiving some strange signals from Earth. They're not standard fleet communications." "What kind of signals?" "They appear to be from civilian ships. Cargo haulers, passenger transports, even some private yachts. They're asking for instructions." Jake didn't understand. "Instructions for what?" Torres listened to his earpiece for a moment. Sir, it sounds like civilians are volunteering to fight. They want to attack the alien ships. Parker shook her head. Civilian ships don't have weapons. They'd be destroyed instantly. Captain, Torres continued, there's more. I'm also detecting signals from some of the older military ships that were supposed to retreat. It sounds like some captains are changing their minds. Jake felt a spark of hope. Maybe the Defiance wouldn't be alone after all. Open a communication. Channel, Jake ordered. Let me talk to them. Torres worked at his console. Channel open, sir. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiance, Jake said. To all ships considering an attack on the alien vessels, be aware that they have superior technology and firepower. Any ship that approaches them will likely be destroyed. A voice came. The Defiance moved slowly through the debris field, her engines running quiet to avoid detection. Jake Morrison stood in the cargo bay, watching as the last group of survivors was loaded aboard a medical transport ship. The transport would take them to safety at a mining station far from the battle zone. Lieutenant Paul Gray was among the survivors being transferred. His burned arm was bandaged, but he could still walk. Before leaving, he approached Jake. Captain Morrison, Gray said, I wanted to thank you for saving us, and I wanted to tell you something else, something I couldn't say in front of the other survivors. Jake waited for Gray to continue. Before the Liberty was destroyed, our intelligence officers discovered something. The aliens have been watching us for months, maybe years. They intercepted our communications, studied our tactics, learned our weaknesses. That's why they were ready for everything we tried. How do you know this? Jake asked. Gray reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data device. This contains classified intelligence reports. Our people found evidence of alien scanning beams targeting our ships during routine patrols. We thought they were natural phenomena. We were wrong. Jake took the device. Why are you giving this to me? Because you're the only captain I've met who didn't immediately run when ordered to retreat. Maybe you can find something useful in those files, something that can help us fight back. The medical transport sealed its doors and departed. Jake watched it disappear into space before returning to the bridge. His crew was still at their stations, waiting for orders. Captain, Torres said, we're receiving more reports from Earth. The alien fleet has reached the outer defense platforms. Put it on screen. The main display showed Admiral Kane again, but this time he was in a command bunker instead of a ship's bridge. Explosions could be heard in the background. Earth Defense Command to all ships, Kane said. The enemy has destroyed the orbital platforms. Luna Base is under attack. All civilian ships are ordered to evacuate immediately. Military vessels are to escort the evacuation convoys. The transmission cut to static. Dr. Bell's voice came through the ship's communication system. Captain, could you come to the medical bay? I need to show you something. Jake found Dr. Bell reviewing medical scans on her computer. She looked worried. What? Is it Susan? I've been examining the survivors we rescued, she said. Many of them have unusual symptoms, headaches, dizziness, memory problems. At first I thought it was from the battle trauma. But it's not? Dr. Bell shook her head. I ran detailed scans. Their brain patterns show signs of external influence, almost like their thoughts have been probed. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Are you saying the aliens were reading their minds? I can't be certain, but the evidence suggests some form of mental scanning. If the aliens can access human thoughts, that would explain how they knew our tactics so well. Jake thought about what Gray had told him. The aliens had been studying humanity for months or years. If they could read human minds, they would know everything about human military strategy. He returned to the bridge and found Chief Engineer Walsh waiting for him. Danny looked excited about something. Captain, I've been studying the sensor logs. From the battle, Walsh said. I found something strange. What kind of strange? Walsh pulled up a display showing energy readings. Look at these patterns. Every time a human ship fired weapons or used shields, the aliens seemed to know exactly what was coming. But there's something else. The aliens never targeted us during the rescue operation. Maybe they didn't see us, Parker suggested. Walsh shook his head. No, they should have seen us. We were right there in the debris field. But look at these energy readings from our ship compared to the destroyed vessels. Jake studied the display. The destroyed ships all showed similar energy signatures, bright and clean patterns. The Defiance showed a different pattern, rougher and more chaotic. Our reactor is older, Walsh explained. It doesn't run as smoothly as the new fusion plants. It creates what engineers call quantum noise, random energy fluctuations that interfere with sensors. Are you saying our old reactor made us invisible? Not invisible, but harder to detect. The alien sensors might be designed to track the clean energy signatures of newer ships. Our messy, old reactor confused their systems. Parker leaned forward in her chair. Danny, are you suggesting that our outdated technology is actually an advantage? It's possible. The aliens studied our newer ships and learned to counter them, but they might not have bothered studying ships as old as the Defiance. Jake felt a spark of hope. If Walsh was right, the Defiance might be able to get close to the alien ships without being detected immediately. Torres, Jake said, try to contact other old ships in the fleet, ships with older reactors like ours. Torres worked at his console for several minutes. Captain, I'm finding a few responses. The USS Carter is hiding near Jupiter. She's a 15-year-old frigate. The USS Davis is near Saturn. She's about our age. There are maybe 6 or 7 older ships still operational. Are any of them willing to fight? Torres listened to his communications for a moment, then shook his head. No, sir. They're all following orders to retreat to the outer colonies. Jake understood their choice. The Defiance was just one old destroyer against 3 massive alien ships. Any reasonable captain would retreat and save their crew. But Jake kept thinking about Earth, about the billions of people who couldn't run away. Captain, Torres said suddenly, I'm receiving a priority message from Earth. It's not from Fleet Command. It's from the President. The main screen showed President Mary Watson. She was in an underground bunker, and Jake could hear alarms in the background. Citizens of Earth and the colonies, President Watson said. Our world is under attack by an alien force of unknown origin. Our defense fleets have been defeated. Evacuation ships are departing from major cities. But most of our population cannot be moved in time. The president paused, and Jake could see tears in her eyes. To any human ship still in the area, we are not asking you to sacrifice yourselves. But if there is anything you can do to buy us time, millions of lives depend on it. We will not surrender. Our world without a fight. The transmission ended. The bridge was quiet for a long moment. Captain, Parker said softly, the president is right. Most people on Earth can't be evacuated. The transport ships can only carry a small percentage of the population. Jake looked at the data device Gray had given him. He inserted it into the ship's computer and began reading the intelligence reports. What he found made his anger grow. The reports showed that the aliens had been observing human space for over 2 years. They had studied human ship designs, learned human languages, and analyzed human military tactics. The attack on Mars wasn't random. It was planned and calculated. But there was something else in the reports, references to experimental technology that had been abandoned by the military. Projects that were considered too dangerous or unstable for use. Danny, Jake said, come look at this. There are reports about something called quantum noise amplification, some kind of experimental stealth technology. Walsh read the files over Jake's shoulder. This is interesting, Captain. The technology was designed to amplify the natural quantum noise that older reactors produce. It would make a ship completely invisible to most sensors. Why was it abandoned? Because it's unstable. The energy fields could overload and destroy the ship. The newer ships couldn't handle the power fluctuations. Jake looked at his old ship with new eyes. The Defiance had been built tough, designed to handle rough conditions and equipment failures. Maybe she could handle technology that newer ships couldn't. How long would it take to build this quantum noise amplifier? Jake asked. Walsh thought for a moment. With the equipment we have and parts from the debris field, maybe 6 or 8 hours. But Captain, if this fails, it could destroy the ship. And if we do nothing, the aliens will destroy Earth. Parker stood up from her console. Captain, I've been analyzing the alien ship's movement patterns. They're not random, they're systematic, methodical, they're destroying military targets first, then infrastructure, then population centers. If we could disrupt their pattern, we might be able to save lives. Dr. Bell's voice came through the communication system again. Captain, I've finished my analysis of the survivors' brain scans. I think I know how the aliens are reading human thoughts. Jake went back to the medical bay. Dr. Bell showed him brain scan images on her computer. The alien mental probes leave a specific pattern in brain tissue, she explained. But I've discovered something important. The pattern fades over time. After about 12 hours, the alien influence is gone. What does that mean? It means the aliens have to scan a person recently to read their thoughts. They can't access old memories or plans made after the scanning stops. Jake began to understand. If the crew of the Defiance had not been scanned by the aliens, their thoughts would be unreadable. The aliens wouldn't know what they were planning. He returned to the bridge with new determination. Danny, start working on that quantum noise amplifier. Use whatever parts you need from the debris field. Lisa, I want you to design attack patterns that have never been used before. Something completely new that the aliens couldn't have studied. Ryan, monitor all communications, but don't... The Defiance raced toward Earth with her reactor pushed beyond all safety limits. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, watching the tactical display as dozens of human ships converged on the 3 alien vessels. Each ship represented people who had chosen to fight rather than run. 30 minutes to target, Parker announced. The alien ships are still charging their planet-killer weapon. Jake turned to Walsh. Danny, it's time. Start the reactor overload. Sequence. Walsh's face was grim as he worked at his engineering console. Overload sequence initiated, Captain. Once this starts, we have exactly 30 minutes before the reactor explodes. No way to stop it. Alarms began sounding throughout the ship as the reactor entered its final phase. Jake felt the deck vibrating under his feet as enormous energies built up in the engine room. All crew members, Jake announced over the ship's communication system. We have begun the final approach. Every person on this ship volunteered to be here. You're the bravest people I've ever known. Dr. Bell handed out the mind-scanning detectors to the bridge crew, the small devices attached to their uniforms, showing steady green lights. Remember, Dr. Bell said, if these turn red, the aliens are trying to read our thoughts. Try to think about anything except our mission. Torres looked up from his communication console. Captain, the other ships are reporting in. The Carter and Davis are following our approach vector. The civilian ships are spreading out to attack from multiple angles. Any word from Earth's surface? President Watson is still alive in the command bunker. She's coordinating the evacuation of major cities, but most people can't get away in time. Jake looked at the main screen. Earth filled most of the view now, blue and white and beautiful. Above the planet, the 3 alien ships hung like dark thunderclouds. Energy readings from their main weapon continued to climb. 25 minutes to target, Parker said. Captain, I'm detecting movement from the alien escort ships. They're spreading out into a defensive formation. Do they see us? I don't think so, but they might be preparing for something. Jake studied the tactical display. The alien ships were repositioning themselves to cover all approaches to their main vessel. Even if they couldn't see the attacking human ships clearly, they were taking no chances. Torres, open a channel to all attacking ships. Channel open, Captain. All ships, this is Morrison. The aliens are moving into defensive positions. Civilian vessels should begin their attacks now. Draw their attention. Military ships with older technology will continue the stealth approach. Immediately, Jake saw dozens of new contacts on his sensors as the civilian ships dropped their stealth systems and accelerated toward the aliens. Cargo haulers, passenger transports, mining vessels, all flying straight at 3 ships that had destroyed humanity's best warships. The alien response was swift and merciless. Blue energy beams lanced out from all 3 ships, cutting through the approaching civilian vessels like knives through paper. Jake watched helplessly as ship after ship exploded in brilliant flashes, but the civilian attack was working. The aliens were focusing their attention on the obvious targets, the ships they could see clearly. The Defiance and the other stealth ships continued their approach undetected. "My God," Parker whispered, watching the slaughter on her tactical display. "They're being massacred." "Captain Rogers' ship just exploded," Torres reported, his voice breaking. "The frontier is gone." Jake forced himself to watch as brave people died buying time for his mission. Captain Rogers had known he was flying to his death, but he had come anyway. 15 minutes to target," Parker announced. "Captain," Walsh's voice came from the engine room. "Reactor overload is at 60%. The explosion will be massive when it comes." Jake could feel the ship shaking more violently now as the reactor built toward critical failure. Warning lights flashed throughout the bridge. 10 minutes to target. We're approaching the outer edge of their defensive perimeter. Jake held his breath. This was the critical moment. If the aliens detected them now, the mission would fail. The Defiance slid through space like a ghost, her quantum noise amplifier masking her energy signature. The alien ships continued firing at the civilian vessels, seemingly unaware of the approaching danger. 8 minutes to target. Torres suddenly looked up from his console with alarm. "Captain, the USS Carter just decloaked. She's beginning her attack run." On the tactical display, Jake saw Commander Grant's ship appear suddenly, racing toward the nearest alien vessel. The Carter's weapons fired continuously, missiles and energy beams striking the alien ship's shields. The alien response was immediate. All 3 ships turned their weapons on the Carter. Blue energy beams converged on the human destroyer, overwhelming her shields in seconds. "The Carter is gone," Torres reported quietly. Jake felt anger burning in his chest. Good people were dying, while he watched. But their sacrifice was giving the Defiance the chance she needed. 5 minutes to target. We're inside their defensive perimeter. Jake could see the main alien ship clearly now. It was enormous, at least 2 kilometers long, its black hull smooth and featureless. But Jake could detect energy patterns moving across its surface as the planet-killer weapon charged. "Danny," Jake called to the engine room. "How are we doing on the reactor overload?" 95%, Captain. 5 more minutes and this ship becomes a very large bomb." "Perfect timing." "Captain," Dr. Bell said suddenly, "my detector just turned yellow. The aliens might be trying to scan us." Jake looked at his own device. The green light was flickering, turning amber. "Everyone concentrate on something other than our mission," Jake ordered. "Think about your families, your hobbies, anything but what we're doing." Parker tried to think about her childhood home. Torres thought about music. Walsh thought about the technical manuals he enjoyed reading. Dr. Bell thought about her medical training. The detectors flickered back to green. 3 minutes to target. The Defiance was very close to the alien ship now. Jake could see details on its hull, strange markings and protrusions that might have been weapons or sensors. The ship was so large that it filled most of the main screen. "Captain," Parker said, "I'm reading massive energy buildup in their main weapon. I think they're about to fire on Earth." Jake felt his heart sink. They were too late. The aliens were going to destroy Earth before the Defiance could reach them. But then something unexpected happened. "Captain," Torres called out excitedly, "I'm receiving a transmission from Earth. It's not from Fleet Command. It's from all over the planet." "What kind of transmission?" "Radio signals, sir. Thousands of them. People are broadcasting from the surface. Jake didn't understand. Broadcasting what? Torres listened to his communications equipment, then smiled. Messages of hope, sir. People telling their families they love them. Children singing songs, poetry readings, music performances. The whole planet is broadcasting, Captain. Jake felt tears in his eyes. Even facing extinction, humanity was not giving up. People were sharing love and beauty with the universe, making sure their voices would be heard one last time. 2 minutes. To target! The mind-scanning detectors suddenly turned bright red and began shrieking alarms. They're scanning us! Dr. Bell shouted over the noise. Full mental probe! Jake felt something pressing against his thoughts, like cold fingers trying to dig into his mind. He fought against it, trying to think about anything except the reactor overload and the ramming attack. But the alien probe was strong. Jake could feel his mental defenses weakening. Think about Earth, Jake said to his crew. Think about the people we're trying to save. Let them see that. Jake opened his mind to thoughts of Earth, green forests and blue oceans, children playing in parks, families gathered around dinner tables, artists creating beautiful things, scientists making discoveries. All the wonderful diversity of human life. He could feel the alien presence in his mind, cold and calculating. But instead of learning about military tactics, the aliens were experiencing human emotion, human love, human creativity. The mental probe suddenly withdrew, as if shocked by what it had found. 1 minute to target. Reactor overload at 99%. The Defiance was racing toward the alien ship at maximum speed. Jake could see individual sections of the alien hull, massive gun ports, shield generators, armor plating. 30 seconds to impact. Captain, Parker said, the alien ship is turning toward us. They see us now. Blue energy beams lanced out from the alien vessel, striking the Defiance's shields. The old ship shuddered under the impact, but her shields held. Shields down to 40%, Parker reported. 20 seconds to impact. More alien weapons fired. The Defiance's shields collapsed completely. Energy beams cut through her hull, causing explosions throughout the ship. Hull breach on decks 3 and 4, Torres reported. We're losing atmosphere. 10 seconds to impact. Jake could see alien crew members through the transparent sections of their ship's hull. They looked almost human, but taller and thinner, with pale skin and large eyes. Some of them were looking back at him. 5 seconds. Jake thought about his crew, about the brave people who had chosen to stay with him. He thought about all the humans who had died trying to protect Earth. He thought about the children on the planet below who deserved a chance to grow up. Impact. The Defiance struck the alien ship at full speed. Her reinforced bow punched through the alien hull like a bullet through paper. The human destroyer buried herself deep in the alley. The explosion of the USS Defiance lit up space like a new star. The massive fireball consumed both the human destroyer and the main alien vessel, sending shockwaves through the void that shattered windows on Earth's orbital stations hundreds of miles away. Captain Jake Morrison was gone. His crew was gone. The Defiance was nothing but scattered atoms and twisted metal. But their sacrifice had torn the heart out of the alien fleet. The main alien ship, the one that had carried the planet-killer weapon, broke apart in a chain of secondary explosions. Huge pieces of hull plating spun away into space. The ship's massive reactor core went critical, adding its own destruction to the chaos. The 2 remaining alien ships reeled from the shockwave. Their perfect formation shattered as they struggled to regain control. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens seemed confused and uncertain. On Earth's surface, President Mary Watson stood in the underground command bunker watching. The tactical displays with tears streaming down her face. The energy readings from the alien planet-killer weapon had dropped to 0. Earth was safe, but the cost had been terrible. "Ma'am," said General Frank Adams, the president's military advisor, "we're receiving reports from all over the planet. The alien ground attacks have stopped. Their ships are just floating in orbit. President Watson wiped her eyes and straightened her shoulders. Get me a communication link to any surviving human ships. We need to coordinate a response while the aliens are disorganized. High above Earth, the two damaged alien ships were trying to retreat, but they weren't alone. The human ships that had survived the desperate battle were regrouping, and they weren't finished fighting. Commander Lisa Grant of the USS Carter was dead, but her sacrifice had inspired others. The USS Davis, still hidden by her old reactor's quantum noise, had witnessed the Defiance's final charge. Captain Tony Clark made a decision that would change the course of the war. "All hands. This is the captain," Clark announced to his crew. "The Defiance just showed us how to hurt these aliens. They're not invincible. We're going to follow Morrison's example." The Davis dropped her stealth field and accelerated toward the nearest alien ship. But instead of ramming, Clark had a different plan. He ordered his crew to overload their reactor just enough to create a massive electromagnetic pulse, not enough to destroy their own ship. The pulse wave struck the alien vessel like invisible lightning. The alien ship's systems flickered and failed. Its smooth movement became erratic as its advanced computers struggled to compensate for the electromagnetic interference. "It worked!" Clark's tactical officer reported with excitement. "Their shields are down. Their weapons are offline." Other human ships saw what the Davis had accomplished. The cargo hauler New Hope, damaged but still fighting, rammed the crippled alien vessel at full speed. Without shields to protect it, the alien ship's hull cracked open like an egg. The surviving alien ship, seeing its companion destroyed, began retreating toward the edge of the solar system. But it wasn't fast enough. Ships were arriving from all across human space. The USS Phoenix, a battlecruiser that had been conducting exercises near Jupiter, dropped out of faster-than-light travel with guns blazing. The cargo ship Mountain Wind, her hull scarred from the earlier battle, positioned herself to block the alien retreat. But most importantly, old ships were coming. Vessels that had been scheduled for retirement, museum pieces that still had working, engines, even civilian craft with outdated technology. The aliens had studied humanity's modern fleet, but they had never bothered learning about humanity's older ships. The alien vessel found itself surrounded by a motley collection of human spacecraft, freighters, patrol boats, research vessels, and warships that were old when Jake Morrison was young. Each ship carried the same quantum noise signature that had allowed the Defiance to approach undetected. Captain Sarah Collins of the research Ship Explorer made the final attack. Her ship was designed for scientific missions, not combat. But she had watched the Defiance's sacrifice and felt the same determination that had driven Jake Morrison. "This is for Earth," Collins said as she rammed her ship into the alien vessel's engine section. The last alien ship died in a ball of fire, taking Captain Collins and her crew with it. The immediate threat to Earth was over, but the war was just beginning. In the days that followed, humanity learned valuable lessons from the wreckage of alien ships. Human scientists discovered that the aliens had been part of a vast galactic empire that had conquered dozens of worlds. Earth had been targeted for destruction because humans showed too much independence and creativity. But the aliens had made a crucial mistake. They had studied humanity's technology and tactics, but they had never understood humanity's spirit. They had expected humans to surrender when faced with superior force. They had not planned for people like Jake Morrison, who would refuse to give up even when defeat seemed certain. Dr. Susan Bell's research on alien mind-scanning technology survived in her ship's computer banks, which were recovered from the Defiance's wreckage. Her work became the foundation for mental defense systems that protected human thoughts from alien probes. Chief Engineer Danny Walsh's quantum noise amplifier design was found in the ship's technical logs. Human engineers used his work to develop stealth technology that made entire fleets invisible to alien sensors. Lieutenant Commander Lisa Parker's unconventional attack patterns became standard doctrine for the human military. Her tactics, designed to be unpredictable and chaotic, proved effective against aliens who relied on logic and mathematical precision. Communications specialist Ryan Torres's final broadcast had been heard across human space. His message that humans don't surrender their home became a rallying cry for the resistance movement that followed. 3 months after the Battle of Earth, President Watson stood before a gathering of human leaders from across the colonies. Behind her, a holographic display showed the faces of Jake Morrison and his crew. "The crew of the USS Defiance taught us something important," the president said. "They taught us that humans don't measure victory by survival. We measure it by whether we protected the things we love. The aliens thought they could break us by destroying our ships and killing our soldiers. They were wrong. Every time they defeat us, we come back stronger. Every time they develop new weapons, we find new ways to fight. They studied our technology, but they never understood our hearts. Captain Morrison and his crew are gone, but their example lives on. Across human space, old ships are being pulled out of retirement. Civilian vessels are being converted for military use. We're not fighting with the weapons the aliens expect. We're fighting with creativity, determination, and the refusal to give up." The Defiance was just one ship with a small crew, but she carried something the aliens had never encountered before. She carried the human spirit, and that spirit cannot be destroyed by any weapon. The war against the alien empire lasted for 7 years. It was brutal and costly, with millions of casualties on both sides. But humanity never forgot the lesson of the Defiance. When conventional tactics failed, humans tried something new. When modern technology was countered, humans used older methods. When faced with impossible odds, humans found ways to make the impossible happen. The turning point came when a fleet of converted civilian ships, all using quantum noise amplifiers based on Danny Walsh's design, penetrated the alien home system, undetected. The aliens had expected an attack from humanity's military fleet. They were not prepared for an assault by cargo haulers, passenger transports, and mining vessels. The final battle was won by a crew of volunteers flying a ship that was older than some of the crew members. They succeeded where modern warships had failed, proving once again that technology alone was not enough to defeat human determination. 10 years after the Battle of Earth, a memorial was built in Earth's orbit where the Defiance had made her final charge. The memorial was simple, just a small space station with a museum and a viewing deck, but it became one of the most visited sites in human space. Children came with their families to learn about the crew that had saved their world. Military officers came to study the tactics that had changed the course of the war. Scientists came to examine the technology that had given humanity its first victory against impossible odds, but most people came simply to remember 5 people who had refused to fall. In the museum, visitors could see recordings of the Defiance's final mission. They could read the personal logs of Jake Morrison and his crew. They could learn about the science behind the quantum noise amplifier and the mind-scanning detectors. But the most popular exhibit was a simple recording of Torres's final broadcast playing on an endless loop. "This is the USS Defiance. The alien weapon has been stopped. Earth is safe. Tell everyone that humans don't surrender their home." Those words had traveled across the galaxy, inspiring resistance movements on dozens of worlds. Other species that had been conquered by the alien empire heard the message and began to fight back. The Galactic War that followed freed hundreds of billions of people from alien rule, all because one old ship and her crew had refused to fall. The memorial's viewing deck looked out over Earth, blue and green and beautiful. The human ship moved through space toward the biggest space station Jake Martinez had ever seen. The station was huge, made of shiny metal and crystal, with long arms reaching out like a giant star. Captain Roy Henderson stood on the bridge watching. "The station get bigger on their screen." "Captain, they're sending us a message," said Steve Adams from his workstation. "They want to know what kind of beings we are and where we come from." Captain Henderson looked at the 2 people standing next to him. "Jake, Lisa, this is your job now. This is what we came here to do." Jake was a thin man in his 30s with kind eyes behind glasses. He studied alien life forms for Earth. Next to him stood Lisa Thompson, a strong woman with rough hands who knew how to build things and survive in hard places. She looked like someone who could handle anything. "Sending our information now," Jake said as he worked the controls. "We are humans from Earth in the Sol system." The answer came back fast. Their screen showed an alien face with long features and silver eyes. A machine changed its words into English so they could understand. "Humans from Earth," the alien said. "I am Ambassador Zekthor from the Galactic Council. We have looked at your request to join us. Your people have been marked as Deathworld. Survivors. Class Omega." Lisa raised one eyebrow. "Deathworld survivors? What does that mean?" The alien's face became serious. "Your planet has dangers far beyond what normal life should face. Bad weather, ground that shakes and breaks, dangerous radiation, animals that hunt and kill, and air that would kill most council species in minutes. The fact that you grew up there is shocking." Jake leaned forward, interested, even though this sounded bad. "So we're not the first Deathworld species you've met?" "You are the first to contact us," Zekthor said carefully. "Other Deathworld species were moved to safe places for their own good and the safety of the Council. Everyone on the bridge became quiet. Captain Henderson's face got hard. Moved where? That information is secret until we finish checking you. You will dock at Bay 94. We must test your bodies and minds before we make any decisions." The message ended suddenly, leaving the humans staring at a black screen. "I don't like the sound of this moving business," Lisa said quietly, checking their defense systems. "Captain, I count 50 ships around this station, and most of them have weapons." Henderson nodded with a grim look. "Jake, Lisa, I want you two to learn as much as you can during these tests. Something about this feels wrong." As their ship got closer to the docking bay, Jake saw that other ships were staying far away from them. Through the windows, he could see alien crew members watching their ship with faces that looked like fear. "Lisa," he said quietly, "have you noticed they're treating us more like dangerous animals than guests?" Lisa was already using her portable scanner to check things. "The air in that station is barely good enough for us to breathe, but they're not giving us special suits. Either they don't care if we're comfortable or they're testing us somehow." The docking went fast and smooth. As they got ready to leave their ship, Captain Henderson pulled the two scientists aside. "Remember, you're not just here for humanity. You're our eyes and ears. If something bad happens to our friendship talks, we need to know what we're really dealing with." Jake and Lisa looked at each other. Neither had expected their first meeting with aliens to feel so much like walking into a trap. The door opened with a hiss, showing a clean hallway lined with what looked like security guards from many different species. Their guide was a tall being with blue skin and 4 arms who told them to follow. "Welcome to Council Station Prime," the guide said in broken English. "I am Administrator Quintel. You will go through standard processing for Class Omega entities." "Entities?" Lisa repeated, her engineer mind already mapping ways to escape. "Not beings, not people. Entities." As they walked deeper into the station, Jake began to understand that humanity's arrival at the Galactic Council was not the start of a friendship. It was the beginning of something much more dangerous. The hallways were wide and clean but felt cold. Alien beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors, but they all gave the humans a wide space when they passed. Some stared openly, with what looked like fear or disgust. Others whispered to each other in languages the translation machines couldn't pick up. "Notice how they all look at us," Lisa said under her breath. "Like we might explode at any moment." Jake nodded. His scientific training told him to observe everything. The station was built for beings who came from safe, easy worlds. Everything was clean and perfect, but also fragile. The walls were thin, The gravity was light, and the air was processed to remove any smell or particle that might be unpleasant. These people have never faced real danger, Jake realized. Look around. Everything here is designed for comfort and safety. No wonder they think we're monsters. They passed through several security checkpoints, each one more thorough than the last. Scanners checked their bodies, machines tested their breath, and guards watched their every move. At each stop, Jake saw the security officers talking to each other in worried voices. Administrator Quintel led them to a section of the station that felt different from the rest. The walls were thicker here, the doors were heavier, and Jake noticed that the hallways had fewer windows. This was not a guest area. This was a prison area. "Your rooms are here," Quintel said, stopping in front of two doors marked with symbols Jake didn't recognize. "You will stay here during your evaluation period. Food will be brought to you. Do not leave these rooms without permission." "How long will this evaluation take?" Lisa asked. "That depends on how well you cooperate," Quintel replied. His tone made it clear that cooperation was not optional. The doors slid shut behind them with a sound that reminded Jake of a jail cell closing. He looked around his room. It was clean and had everything he needed, but the walls were too thick and the door had no handle on the inside. Through a small window, he could see part of the station's main area. Aliens walked around freely, going about their daily lives. But here in this section, Jake saw other beings in rooms like his. Beings who looked tired and scared. Beings who had been here for a long time. "Lisa," he called through the wall between their rooms. "I think we need to be very careful here." "Already figured that out," came her voice back. "Jake, I've been looking at this room. It's not just locked from the outside. It's built to contain something they think is very dangerous." Jake felt a chill run down his back. The Galactic Council didn't see humans as potential friends or allies. They saw them as a threat that needed to be contained. And if the pattern with other Deathworld species was any guide, containment was just the first step. The next step would be elimination. As night fell over the station, Jake lay on the hard bed they had given him and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere out there, 17 other species had gone through this same process. 17 other species had been judged too dangerous to live freely, and none of them had ever been seen again. Tomorrow, the real testing would begin. Jake just hoped that he and Lisa would be smart enough and strong enough to find out what had really happened to those other species, because if they couldn't, humanity might be the 18th species to disappear into the Galactic Council's idea of safety. The station hummed around him with the sound of advanced technology and peaceful civilization. But Jake had spent enough time in dangerous places to know that the most beautiful environments were often the most deadly. And this beautiful, peaceful station felt very deadly indeed. Lisa Thompson, now Director of Galactic Engineering, joined Jake at the podium. "The first expedition launches next month. The crew will include representatives from 15 different species, including several who were thought extinct just a few years ago. And," Jake added with a smile, "they'll be traveling aboard the GCS New Horizon, a ship designed using technologies that no single species could have developed alone." As the assembly broke into excited discussions about the implications of intergalactic contact, Jake reflected on the long journey that had brought them to this point. It had started with two humans who refused to accept that their species was too dangerous to exist. Now, the galaxy itself was preparing to take its next great leap into the unknown. The truth, Abby,